All right, welcome in to the pregame for Bear and Balanced. Yeah,
Post game. So you're all over the place now because it's like short week. You
I
know
said Bear
what's
and
what's
Balanced.
happening. You said pregame.
It's the pregame
Oh, this
for
is the
for
pregame.
Bear
See,
and
I'm
Balanced.
all over
We're
the
just
place,
like
man.
wrapping before we start
We're
the
all
podcast. So this is what we
discombobulated
do on
here.
this show, Lester. Is we just have
I
a
know.
soft intro where we just kind of introduce ourselves and our mood to the audience, and then we record a podcast, and then we come back to the audience and
I
address the
know.
questions in the comment section.
I know. It's but one of those. It's a long season already.
We were joking around beforehand that I feel like I might be in like a Netflix or a Amazon Prime or a Apple TV series where like I'm actually dead, but like I'm just in like this loop where my job is to cover this team that can't get out of its own way, and it's just kind of like this, like, I don't know, form of purgatory or hell or something, right? Like that's what it feels like right now. For the what is this, the 21st time in the last 2 years we're talking about another Chicago Bears loss. I mean, it's brutal.
5 wins in the Eberflus era, and it wasn't like it was great in the Nagy era. So it was like, oh man, this is just bad time to start a podcast. I guess a couple years ago, whenever this whole thing was. But that's fine though. I mean, we have a good time. We have good interaction. We have a nice, loyal group of people that kind of tune in and listen to us and interact with us online about it. So there are worse things I could be doing on a Monday nights.
It's true. There's the myth of Sisyphus. This Greek myth. You know what I'm
Man,
talking about
no.
here?
Let's
So
lay it on me.
I don't remember exactly what this Greek god or whatever was being punished for, but his punishment was to roll this big boulder up a hill, and then get up to the hill, and the hill would, the boulder would roll down, and he'd have to walk after it, and then he'd have to roll it back up the hill. That's pretty much what this says. Every once in a while we get it up to the top of the hill and it rolls down, and the Bears get a win, and we get a little bit of a break as we walk after the boulder. Then we get down to it and we have to push it right back up, because forbid that the Bears win two of these in a row. Like we certainly can't do that, right? So
No,
we're just like pushing this boulder up to the top of the hill. That's basically our job.
I like that. I'm gonna work that into an article this week. I think if I can remember how to spell it, if I can figure it out. What is it? Sisyphus? What is it? What is it?
I mean, I don't know.
I
I mean,
have a
off the
hard
top
enough
of my
time with
head,
the
how to
Bears
spell it.
players.
I
I have
think
a hard
it's
enough time with the Bears
SIS
players. Okay, I'll find it.
Y
Okay,
PHUS. I
I
don't
think
know.
you just spelled syphilis. I don't think that's what it is.
The myth,
Let me.
the syphilis is not a myth. I know that
Okay,
much. Uh, there's
not by personal experience. I hope.
no, not by personal experience,
Okay,
but
okay.
there's some Bears history with syphilis, right? You know this?
Okay. Uh,
So so there's a way back, like in the 20s, the George Hallis gave part ownership of the team to a guy named Chick Chigati. And he was from Ohio State, and it was basically for him to come play and for some of his friends. I believe I'm getting this right, and if I'm butchering it, I apologize to the
if you're
Chigati
butchering
family.
it, no one would know in the comments. They'd
Right,
be
right,
like,
right.
"Oh, this
So
guy
so
knows this
in
stuff."
in the contract, though, there was something about, like, you had to be able to play, or health, or like there was some kind of, like, maybe a morality clause, or there was something in there. And then it came out that he had syphilis. I'm pretty sure it was syphilis. And and because of that, uh, they Hallis moved to remove his ownership stake and revert back to him and whoever else was part owner at the time. And he won. Like they had to take it in front of the league, and Hallis won. And that this guy lost his ownership share because of syphilis.
Okay.
I am pretty sure that that is a real story, and if it's not, I apologize to all people involved that I just butchered that. But
We should have
it's
Reed
real.
Jack do a deep dive on that one for one of his next 10,000 word articles. The Bears versus syphilis.
The Bears' sordid history with syphilis. That would be
Oh man,
fantastic. You know what? We'll pitch him. We'll pitch him in the DMs
we
here in a
will.
bit.
All
See what
right.
he thinks about that. Hey, you want to record a podcast?
Let's do it. This show is off the rails already. I love
Man, I
it.
love it. This might be the best show we ever had.
I think it might be.
Myth of Sisyphus, syphilis. What else can we get in here? All right. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website. That is Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears dropped the 21st game in the Matt Eberflus era. But other than that, how you doing?
I can't complain. Daylight saving time is now a thing, so it's pitch black here in the Midwest, and I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, I'm not really anti daylight saving. I don't get the point. Like, what's the point of it now? Like, what's the deal here?
Do you
I
want
know
it
you
to go
know.
away forever, or do you want to like keep the daylight savings time forever?
I think we should have it go away forever. But if it, I understand that. Like, what is the reasoning? I know if someone from Iowa like yourself, we probably have the actual reasoning behind why it's still a thing. I know that's supposed to be is go away. I thought that was like a law was passed at some point, but then it just never happens.
I think it was close to going away, and some
Okay.
states can choose to, or regions or states can choose to not exercise. This is not a daylight savings time show, but I believe that the major argument for going back to standard time is that children at the bus stop would be standing in the
Okay.
dark if you didn't move it
Okay.
back. But I think that the idea of trying to give us a little bit more daylight later, I like quite a bit, actually. I wish
Yes.
it would just remain. I like having daylight a little later.
That's what I
We're
want.
not
That's the
quite
one.
as an agrarian society as we used to be. And so I think that we could, time's a construct. We can start it whenever we want. But I would rather have it be a little later in the day. I also think there's something about circadian rhythms that has to do with something, but we won't get into that. That's not what we're talking about today. This is a football podcast. We are way
I
off the
love
rails.
it.
Our pregame was off the rails. The intro's off the rails. Uh, why don't we talk about football?
Let's
And
do it. Let's
we
do it.
do that by starting in the trenches with our trench tribute. And I think there's a very clear winner this week. And so why don't you start? And if we both have the same guy, we both have the same guy. What are you going to do?
I got a feeling we are going to have the same guy because Tevin Jenkins has been balling it out this whole season. You're wearing the shirts. You can get our shirt there with the pancake power from our guys at 500 level. Use our promo code for 20% off, Gridiron 20. That's one of JB's fun designs there. One of the few designs that are actually worthy of purchase this season. But we had a lot of fun with those guys early this season. Hopefully, we can do a few more t-shirts here. But yeah, Evan Jenkins, man, he just watching live. I'm like, yep, he's having a nice game. I know Olin Kreutz, a couple other guys, they tweeted out some stuff during the game, some clips. I went back and watched it again. He is that dude. And I know he's not up for an extension yet. This is his third season, but I think when this off season comes, if he stays healthy, I think Ryan Poles really has to think about locking this guy up long term because when he's in the field, he is outstanding.
And wouldn't that be funny? Because the initial clash between Ryan Poles and Tevin Jenkins when he came in, you heard some grumblings that Poles didn't like anybody on this offensive line, right? Like he
Yeah.
wanted to replace the whole offensive line, just did not like the way they played. Thought they were kind of soft or whatever. You heard by the way, I hate that talking about professional football players and using the term soft because these guys have made it through so much junk that there's no way that any of them are soft. But
Yeah.
let's just say like, oh, maybe he's a little bit more susceptible to injury, and they're worried about his back issues and all that kind of stuff. But the issue was they did not see him as a tackle. They wanted him to move into guard. Jenkins didn't necessarily like that. Guards don't make as much money as tackles. I think that's probably part of it, but it's also probably part of what he saw himself as the league, and that's something to deal with. But he has taken that opportunity, and when he's been on the field, he's been improving all of the time to this point where he's been fantastic since he's returned from injury. And again, like he had an injury earlier in the year where he strained calf muscles, and sort of the word was that it was over conditioning by this coaching staff, right? Like it was
Yeah.
kind of a self-inflicted wound by this coaching staff to run these guys through the ringer after that joint practice with the Colts. So when Jenkins has been on the field, he's been nothing short of fantastic, and they've flipped him back and forth between that left and right guard. So we're seeing him settle in. And what I find interesting, Lester, is that, Nate Davis is going to come back and play football for this team at some point. You paid him a lot of money. You're going to insert him back in the lineup. They seem to try to find every excuse in the book to keep Cody Whitehair on the field. And Tevin Jenkins is clearly their best lineman right now. So what do you do when Nate Davis gets back on the field?
Yes, we've talked about this a couple weeks. It's like Cody Whitehair, the center experience has got to be over. I mean, Lucas Patrick's not much better. I mean, I think he dribbled one back to Bagent in the game on Sunday, but you can't keep putting guys out there at center unless they can get 95% of the snaps back there. And I think that's where Patrick is right now. I mean, you would like 100. I mean, that's a spot you should never miss, but the Bears don't have that luxury of a guy that can actually snap the ball consistently. So it's got to be Whitehair to the bench. He's going to be a very highly paid swing guard, swing center, swing interior guy, which is fine. I mean, at this point in his career, if that's who you are, that's who you are. Tevin Jenkins needs to be in the starting lineup. Nate Davis, like you said, got a ton of money. And he was playing good football too before he got injured. He had the high ankle sprain. So I think if you put those two in there, you lock Jenkins up, then the next 4 or 5 years, these are your guards. And then you find a center in the offseason. And now your interior is pretty damn good. Darnell Wright's pretty good at right tackle. They still like Braxton Jones, but I think there may be a chance they go a different direction in the offseason just because of how the draft may fall. We'll see. I like Braxton Jones a lot at left tackle myself, but we got to see what happens here the rest of the season. But the Bears O-line, they still got to work on their depth, but I think that they have a chance to be pretty good here in the future.
I think overall their pass pro looked really good yesterday, and I think that they gave Tyson Bagent quite a bit of time to sit back there in the pocket. And so you've seen them improve over time. I've been tracking the different starting line combinations. They still haven't got back to their original plan, right? Let's say we have 7 different combinations over 9 games. It's a lot. It's quite the pace that they're on, but you're starting to see a little bit of what you would hope that we would have seen coming into the year. And I think that's particularly showing up in the pass pro. Last year, it seemed like they were quite good at establishing the run. I think Deontay Foreman's, been pretty good behind that line over the last couple of weeks, but you don't necessarily see that identity. But you do like to see that this improvement in the pass pro. So I think overall for a Trench Tribute, just shouting out the pass pro, I think is worthwhile here too.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, part of that is, of course, Tyson Bagent to get the balls out pretty quick. That's kind of what he does there. He doesn't hold it long. He doesn't try to make big plays. He tries just to, navigate it, play the point guard role, which is fine. I mean, that's who he is at this point in his career, undrafted free agent. So I'm sure we'll touch on him a little more later, though, once we move through the format here.
Well, let's do that. Let's get to our sweet tweets portion of the program. So I'm going to start us off today. So our friend Brenda, a former guest here and reporter from camp a couple years ago. So she's at Brenda J Rebel. She says she's trying to figure out how much Justin needs to ball out so we can keep him, but lose enough so that we get rid of Getsy, but not too much where they draft a new quarterback. And so I wanted to highlight this one because I thought it was kind of funny, the mental gymnastics, a little bit of trying to thread the needle here, but a little bit of the mental gymnastics I think a lot of Bears fans are going through right now because they see the reality of the 2 draft picks that the Bears have looking like they might be pretty high. They know that there's going to be some good quarterback prospects in this next draft. A lot of people really like Justin Fields. I mean, I'm one of them. I really like Justin Fields. I really want him to succeed somewhere in this league, even if it's not a navy and orange. But I also want Luke Getsy to be nowhere near this team, and I want this coaching staff to be gone, right? And so, is there a scenario out there where you could see the Bears moving forward with Justin Fields, but with a new coaching staff?
That's a good tweet. Yeah, that's interesting. That's definitely the question here. I mean, if Fields balls out and he shows, he changes everyone's mind, the people that are thinking that they're going to move on, that's going to mean Getsy's probably doing pretty good here. So that's a tough one. I mean, it does seem like the coaching staff is on their last legs, but then of course Ryan Poles has his vote of confidence a couple days ago with Coach Eberflus. So who knows there? It's rare that you're going to fire a guy after just 2 years in. This is some unprecedented waters here with the record he has here. So maybe there's a reason that he can do it. I'm like you, man. I like Justin Fields. I want him to succeed. I wish it was in Chicago. It just doesn't seem that's going to happen here. And is it partly his fault? Of course. Partly the coaching staff's, of course. The Luke Getsy scheme, what he wants to do, just doesn't do him any favors. It's like you see him have success doing things a certain way. Don't change him completely. Sprinkle in some of your stuff if that's what you want to do. You could have some success going away from what you want to do because that's what your talent dictates. And we haven't seen that from a Bears coach here in a long time. When's the last time the Bears had a coach on offense or defense that really molded what they want to do towards their talent? We really haven't seen it. Probably the most successful coach the Bears have had here in quite some time was Vic Fangio, but Fangio ran his scheme. That Bears happen to have guys that could do it for him, but there's really hasn't been a coach in Chicago that have kind of done what he had to do because of what he had on the field in a long time. So that's tough, Brenda. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Justin Fields is going to be gone. I think if it comes down to Getsy or Fields, I think it may be Getsy if Flus stays. This is just what a shitty time to be a Bears fan because there's so much unknown with the coaching staff and with the team. At least last year we knew it's a rebuild. No problem. This year, what is this? This isn't a rebuild, but it looks like we're heading towards another something this offseason. So much unknown.
If they run Flus and Getsy back, I'm going to put in the paperwork for a sabbatical from SB Nation, just so you know, just in advance.
I can't blame you. Yeah,
I gotta let you know. I don't think I could do it. I really don't think I can watch a train wreck again. I just can't. We know that this isn't going anywhere. So make the right decision, George. Move on, or Kevin, whoever has the power here.
Whoever, yeah.
What about you? What do you have this week?
I'm going back to the trenches. Kevin Fishbane, of course, writes for The Athletic at K Fishbane. He tweets, since 2014, the Bears are 1-22 when they don't record a sack. That's via StatHead. The only win was the 2019 season finale. 8 of those games / losses have come under Matt Eberflus, including yesterday's game against the Saints. This has been a problem. This is why they made the trade for Montez Sweat. They need to get a pass rusher here. But you're running this system that relies on pressure from the front four. It's not happening. I got some more on that later in my numbers game, but Montez Sweat, he was fine yesterday. He didn't do a lot. He didn't play as much. Probably he'll play once he gets really involved in the play calling and understands everything he's supposed to do. But I got a bonus tweet. That's Courtney Cronin. ESPN tweets out per Next Gen Stats, Montez Sweat generated a team high 4 pressures on his 25 pass rushes, 16% pressure rate. That's not bad. We kind of saw some flashes. He only had 2 tackles, but this is why you go out and get Montez Sweat, because you need someone to get after the quarterback. You need that front four to do something. And so far through 9 games, it hasn't.
Well, just a little preview. I filed my story for tomorrow morning, and I basically updated my sacks chart that I made a couple years ago, and I was kind of thinking, hey, the Bears might be on track to break their franchise record. Like, they got out to a really hot start a few years ago, and I just kind of wanted to see where that would go. Ended up not breaking that record, but anyway, I updated that chart, and the Eberflus era, they almost set a franchise low last year. They had 20 sacks last year, the franchise low. And again, the sacks statistic started in 1982, so it hasn't been around forever, but it has been around for a long time. 82 is a long time. That's incidentally the same year I was born. So it's been a while, right? It's been a minute. The low is 18, happened in 2003. Just kind of one of those weird years. It was Dick Drawn's last year, and then Levy came in. But if you look at 2-year totals, which, this is Eberflus's second year, he's got 20 last year. He only has 10. His defense only has 10 this year. That's league low. No one's really even close. And if you look at 2-year total, the low for the Bears in a 2-year stretch is 52. So to avoid a 2-year low, the Bears defense is going to have to go on a bit of a heater. So Montez Sweat's going to need to unlock some things in the last 8 games, because they're going to need to get 22 or more sacks to be able to surpass that 2-year low number. So it's just been a drought, and I don't think it's just about players, right? I think these players are professional football players. Last year, you could say like, you had a couple guys that just aren't that good, and your talent poor. Okay, but this year you're the dead last in the league by a long shot. And you've got guys that have proven in this league that they can get after the passer. I mean, Yannick Ngakoue is a proven pass rusher. That's what he is, but
Yep.
yet he's not doing anything. And it's just this lack of creativity and I mean, probably the best pressure guy on the team before Sweat got here was Edwards, right? Like he seems like
Yeah.
he's getting involved in the attack a little bit more than anybody else on the line. And you just have to wonder, who's coaching these defensive linemen, and why is there such a lack of creativity? Why is there such a lack of stunts and in games that are twists, whatever, that are being played up front? It's sad. It is a sad mark. And people, sacks are over. They're really not
They're
overrated.
not.
Like they kill drives, they lead to forced fumbles, right? Pressures lead to bad throws. They lead to quarterbacks like seeing ghosts and hurrying up their process. Like it is really important for a defense. Sacks aren't a perfect teller of how healthy a defense is, but it's a pretty quick and accurate mark of where a defense is at. And so the fact that the Bears are so bad at it with a defensive minded head coach, and you're not getting the other piece of it with offense on the other side, it really speaks to why this team is so bad.
I talked earlier about how we haven't seen a coach be creative with things. I do recall Sean Desai as defensive coordinator. A few times he would scheme up some looks for his guys to get them one-on-one pass blocking reps. That's something we haven't seen much here from Coach Flus. He has brought some pressure the last few weeks, a little more, but it hasn't really done much as far as getting the sacks there. The sacks is the defensive version of the offensive explosive plays.
100%.
You want those explosive plays on offense, and when you're on defense, it's the negative. You want to sack him, make him lose 10 yards on a play. That's an outstanding job. And like I said, it's not a be all end all. It's not a guaranteed for success. I know Bears fans, famously heard a coach years back say, sacks are overrated, but it's the pressures, it's the hits, it's getting after them, and the Bears aren't doing any of that stuff. And that comes down to Coach Flus, the defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah, I mean, Bears fans got in on Chuck Pagano for being uncreative too, and Pagano looks like Picasso compared to Matt Eberflus. So,
Jeez.
all right, let's move on to the stat of the week. Caught up in a numbers game. I'll start off. I'm taking another response to my call for tweet of the week from our guy Buckus Stats. Quentin is he's great.
Yes.
We love Quentin. He's a friend of the show. But he came away with an interesting stat, and he said the Bears with no takeaways. So again, Bears defense did not turn the ball over. It's related to this sacks issue, this pressure issue. I promise you. But no takeaways in the Eberflus era, 10 times out of 26 games. That's 38%. When he was with the Colts, those no takeaway games were much fewer, about half of that mark, about 20%. And then he compared the Lovey years, which again, the reason why you do that is because Lovey Smith and Eberflus are running somewhat of a similar scheme. And during the Lovey years, only 10% of games, so 1 out of every 10 games the Bears played, the defense failed to force a turnover. So the Eberflus era is just dominated by no pressure, no sacks, no turnovers. And if you want to play good defense, those are the things that you're trying to do.
They've changed the rules so much to benefit the offense these days. There's not a lot defense can do. So one of the things they can do is take the ball away, get sacks. That's something they can do, and it just doesn't happen. I know there was a lot of talk a few years back about how you can't really coach takeaways, but you look at Lovey Smith, his entire tenure, he preached takeaways. Coach Flus has the hits philosophy. It came from Rod Marinelli, who of course learned some of the stuff from Lovey Smith. This is a philosophy. It's creating pressure. It's attacking. It's an attack mindset, which the Bears haven't had here. I understand you want to have this nice culture and philosophy, the hits philosophy. It's nice to say it looks great on a t-shirt if you want to do that, but they're not attacking enough. The same goes for the offense. Luke Getzey doesn't attack. I say it all the time. You want to be the hammer, but the Bears are the nail and everything they do, they react. I want to cheer for a team that they're the one pushing the envelope. They're the one making the defense adjust to them. They're the one making the offense adjust to them. By their pressure packages, by what they're doing on the back end, and too much of this Bears team is just passive, and it stinks. Dare I say, it's very soft.
It's soft, right? Well, it is soft coverage, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't say the players are soft, but
No,
they definitely do run some soft schemes. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you go back to like the Buddy Ryan era, right? That's
Buddy
probably when
Ryan, yeah.
you were first a Bears fan. They dictated terms, right? Like they're going to
Yes.
come after you, and if you're going to go down swinging, man. I don't want to go down, but death by 1,000 cuts. Like no one wants that. Modern day defense is about taking away the ball. It's about forcing those sacks so that you steal a possession because it kills the drive. Like that's what it's about. And it's not about sitting back and trying to play bend but don't break. It's not what it is anymore. These quarterbacks are too good, and the offenses, the rules are like you said, bent to the offense too much. So, what about you? What's your depressing stat?
I'm staying in the sacks realm, and my number is 9.6. Yannick Ngakoue has 67 sacks in his 7 years career, which equates to 9.6 sacks per season. This year, he has 2 in 9 games. He does lead the Bears, tied with T.J. Edwards, linebacker, who they blitz on occasion. But Ngakoue is now on pace for the worst season of his career, which was 8. So he's always been a guy that gets 8 to 10 sacks. It's kind of what he does. We assumed as Bears fans, he's going to come in. Again, he's not an all-pro type guy, but he's a guy that gets after the quarterback. Hasn't happened, just 2. Maybe with Sweat now in on the field. What did Ryan Poles say? Sweat's a multiplier. He makes everyone better around him. Hopefully, because Ngakoue is on track for his worst season ever.
Now, remember the team leader last year was Jaquan Brisker. We talked about that earlier in an earlier episode. He had 4 sacks. I had even talked myself out of that. I was like, that's not a real thing. I blocked that out of my mind, and I confirmed it again today that yes, actually, in fact, Jaquan Brisker was the team leader in sacks last year, the rookie safety with 4. And like you said, like here's Edwards with 2, and he's got the tied for the team lead. I mean, he almost had to trade for Sweat just to get somebody who can, get like 4 or 5 sacks down the stretch. Just save themselves the embarrassment here. So, yeah, the idea of a force multiplier is nice, right? Like you add a number 1, and it makes everybody else's job easier. You be able to kick other guys inside, and rush for more advantageous positions. But there still needs to be a little bit of creativity. Right. Like that still has to happen. You still can't just sit back and spam the same play. Right. I mean, it's the Simpsons meme where, Bart's playing rock, paper, scissors, and all he does is just hits rock every time. Right. Nothing beats rock. Nothing's ever can beat rock. I mean, that's what this defense feels like all the time is they're super uncreative and changing up their coverages. They're super uncreative up front. And it leads to very predictable defensive philosophy that the opposing quarterback figures out and by the end of the first quarter. So it's not a recipe for success. Okay, we've done enough complaining about the defense. Let's move over to the offense and talk about Tyson Bagent with our Bagent report. Tyson Bagent was 18 of 30 for 220 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns, both to Cole Kmet. He threw 3 interceptions. He lost a fumble. He was sacked twice, only losing 8 yards, but he carried the ball for 8 times for 70 yards, did his best impression of Justin Fields with that stat line there. Overall, a pretty tough outing for the young man. That's 4 turnovers that he accounted for, 5 total for the Bears. DJ Moore got the ball peanut punched out as well. Bears lost the turnover battle 5-0, which is hard to do. Hard to do that in the modern NFL. But what did you think of Tyson Bagent, who may or may not get another start on Thursday?
I think he's fine. I mean, I think he is the guy that we always thought he would be. He's an okay player. He's an undrafted free agent. We weren't putting him in the Hall of Fame after preseason. He is who he is. It's exactly how he should be playing for who he is. I will say that Getsy did not do him any favors. I mean, he was much better in the first half. He was on the move. It's the same thing with Fields. We saw him on the move. We saw him running a lot of play action. Second half, he's trying to win from the pocket. Why? I don't understand. It's again, Pro Football Focus charted him out. He was 7 for 7, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks on play action passes. And you hear a lot, oh, it's not sustainable. Bullshit. It is sustainable. You do it until they stop you.
Right.
It's the same thing with the Justin Fields style offense. Oh, you can't just roll them out every play. Why? Why not? And like the whole thing with it's not sustainable. I'm guilty of it too. There's sometimes, okay, you can't just keep you. Well, you know what? If nothing else is working, you got to do what works. Again, make them stop you. And I'm not saying run a rollout play every single play, but don't just completely stop and go, okay, now we're a drop back passing team the whole second half. That's ridiculous. And that's basically what Getsy did.
I don't get him, man. I really don't. I haven't understood him during Justin Fields starts. I mean, he comes out and it's like, I want to make him do it my way. Like there just feels like a stubbornness with this guy. And there's been a lot of talk about going back. Well, Getsy, he was Aaron Rodgers' coach. How much coaching do you think that Luke Getsy was doing with Aaron Rodgers, known stubborn personality, and and he was his quarterback coach. It wasn't even a coordinator, right? So we go back to how wise was this to bring in this guy to work with your young quarterback? I just don't. I don't see it, right? So this whole idea of bringing him back or maybe even elevating him to be the head coach if you fire Flus, I'm so out on anything Luke Getsy related, but there's more evidence that that you can see weekly with what he does by shifting away with what works. 7 for 7, he's moving the ball. You can spam that as much as you want. The league isn't going to fine you, Luke Getsy, if you call too many play action fakes, right? I mean, it's absurd that this guy is allowed to continue to do this. This can't go on. This can't continue.
You hear a lot of stuff about how Fields, you want to cut the field in half, make the game easier for him. Why don't you do the same thing for your undrafted free agent rookie? I understand he can process pretty quick. That's just fine. But if you're processing pretty quick and you're making the wrong reads and you're throwing late and you're getting picked off, 3 times, maybe make the game easier for him too. Maybe run the ball more. Help your young rookie quarterback out by running the ball, play action, get him out of the pocket. I mean, he's not the athlete of Justin Fields, but he's a pretty good athlete. I mean, I'm not sure what his 40 time was, but I mean, he's not like some plodding guy that wants to just sit in the pocket all day. He's a good athlete. He's young. He showed it in this game. He can get on the move. He's accurate on the move. So get him out of the pocket. Do stuff that works, but not Luke Getsy. He wants to just do things his way, and it's frustrating.
And Bagent had a little creativity on some of those, right? He got out, he puts pressure on some defenders. That on that 4th down, that little spin out, right? And that number 6 on the Saints, kind of lost his mind and just sort of drifted back into coverage. And so he's like, okay, I'll take the first, right? That, do that, put defenders in conflict, let him kind of be creative and make plays. Again, I want to reemphasize, he does not have the arm to make all of the throws. Okay. And can we address this velocity thing now? I just want to for the record, put you on blast here that you tweeted out that his velocity numbers from the combine, which I had never heard of before. I had never heard that was even a drill at the combine. And I feel like it has empowered people to say that he has a really fast football coming out of his hand. And I just don't know what people are seeing when they're watching him throw the ball. And I think at least those second 2 picks, the second and third pick should tell you that, the ball's not flying out of his hand. This is not Josh Allen. This is not Justin Fields for that matter. This is a guy that has a limited arm strength. And that means that all of the throws are not there, and he has to be on time with everything that he does.
That's the key. He has to be on time. Tyson Bagent has a strong enough arm to be an NFL quarterback. He does. He doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. He doesn't have Justin Fields' arm. He has a strong enough arm to be an NFL quarterback. when things are going good for him, when he's on time. We saw him late on a couple throws. And if you have a really, really strong arm and you're late, sometimes you can get away with that.
You can get away with it.
Bagent can't do it. So the thing with I knew you were bringing this up. The thing with the miles per hour at the combine. I just tweeted it out there because he doesn't have a bad arm. He just has his arm's fine. But it's kind of like the 40 time. If you run a 40 time at the Underwear Olympics and you're an outstanding athlete and you show this, your broad jumping is all outstanding, that doesn't always translate to the football field when you have pads on. Same kind of thing. It's a drill. They time it. I'm not even sure when they do it. I think they may do it during their other, like when they're doing their normal throwing. They just may have a guy there with a radar gun doing left throw, right throw. That's all it is.
I don't know. I've never heard of it.
He is comparable to other NFL quarterbacks. You know, I think he may have even been charted comparable to Mahomes, which is what some Bears fans saw. Then like, oh, it's the same strength. No, it's not the same strength. It's different than when you're playing. Like he has good touch on his throws. He just can't zip it in there and make all the plays that you want to see him make. But that's fine. You can survive as an NFL quarterback if you're on time, if you're smart with the football, if you are really understanding your offense fully. He's an undrafted rookie. He'll be if he sticks in around in the league, and I think he will. He'll be a much better quarterback in 5 or 6 years than he is now. Yep. That's just what happens, you know. And he may be a starting quarterback down the road for a team somewhere. It's possible. You know, the better you get, he could improve his arm strength. That's not likely. He'll improve it a little bit. I saw someone on social media say, "Oh, that's the easiest thing for a quarterback to do is work on your arm strength." I'm like, what? No, it's not. It's like a pitcher. You can't just be a guy that all of a sudden, you know, comes out of college. Now I'm gonna throw 99 now. You know, you just
he's
can't
already
do it.
23 years old, right? I mean, you don't just like add that. You know, necessarily to your game. It's not like Chad Pennington became, you know, the Josh Allen by the end of his career, right? I mean, this thing they generally and there's a curve where it increases and then they're out, right? Like that's part of it too. But yeah, you know, like you said, all of those things are true. I just want to like kind of kill this idea that's out there that and Lester likes to do this. He just likes to kind of feed, you know, some red meat out there.
I just throw a stat,
for information
throw
purposes,
a number,
right? That's it. Like it's a total innocent, you know, and all that, but. You know, I just want to like kind of kill that because I don't know what you guys are seeing if you're believing that that's everybody has the same arm strength. Just blowing my mind. Okay, quick break. On the other side of this, we will talk everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. Where are you going with your hot this week?
I got to go to linebacker. I got to go TJ Edwards.
Okay.
Because he had 15 tackles, which is the third most in his career. I think he had 17 earlier this season against the Chiefs. So again, a tackling machine, 15 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. He had 1 quarterback hit. He had 1 pass defense on the game. And so far in 9 games this year, he's at an even 100 tackles. So he's close to the you know, the record. I'm not sure what it is. There's been some talk. Who is it? Who has the actual record? Tackles are not really an official stat up to a certain point. So, but he's gonna whatever he ends up, if he stays healthy, he's gonna be up near the top. He'll be on the Mount Rushmore of season tackles guys for sure.
Yeah, I wrote that article up a few weeks ago. You know, is it Dante Jones, where that's an unofficial statistic? But you see the statistics because he played longer. But like a guy like Mike Singletary, he retired before those became an official statistics. So you have no idea. You don't know about Buckus, although that was back in the 14 game era. Blah blah blah. Right. So essentially, is it Dante Jones? Is it Brian Urlacher? Or is it Roquan Smith? Depending on if you care about solo tackles or you know the official stat. But Edwards might challenge that. So that's exciting stuff. I like records. We will track that as we move forward because that's fun. And that's actually a fun record as opposed to, you know, least sacks as a franchise, right? Like that's not that fun to track. But, you know, again, I'm always interested, even the bad ones I like. For me, I thought there were a couple options in the passing game. You know, we could talk Cole Kmet, right? You know, the 2 touchdown catches. I think those are worth, you know, talking about. But I wanted to say Darnell Mooney. Nice. He's kind of disappeared a little bit this year. He's really faded after DJ Moore got here. But I thought he had a really nice game. Not that I don't expect him to be able to have nice games, but I really liked that catch. That I mean, he caught it 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Ran for basically a first down. Three defenders are flowing towards him, and he just sort of does a little yoop and goes back into the middle of the field and gets a whole bunch more yardage. I thought that was a really slick play and really great to see Mooney contribute in that way. Overall, had a really nice game, and I think that we forget a little bit that Mooney was really this passing offense a couple of years ago. He struggled last year a bit and then got injured. And then, of course, you have DJ Moore kind of coming in and taking that alpha role away. But Darnell Mooney's a good football player, and he's in his contract year here. And so wanted to shout him out. And what do you think about Mooney's future in Chicago?
Yeah, I thought you were going to go there. It's at this point, it's hard to say because he's in his contract year. Who are you going to pay? Jalen Johnson's in a contract year. There's some other stuff. You can't just you got to look at the draft. You're paying DJ Moore a ton of money. Where are you going to go there? I like Mooney. I want him to stick around, but this was his best game of the season. And you're looking at it, 5 catches, 82 yards. That's not really an eye-popping number, but what he did on the field was pretty good. He kind of showed his elusiveness. He was smart with the ball in his hand. He didn't have any turnovers, which DJ Moore had a turnover, a peanut punch, but nice game from him. This is his best game he's had now in a while because like I said, he struggled last year too. I'm not sure what they do with him. I mean, I think he should come back. I think there may have been a contract offer at some point. Usually when you have a guy in your contract year, there is some talks of an extension. It never happened. They weren't public about it. He was coming off an injury. Maybe they want to wait and see what happens here. But at this point, you can't give him too much money. But, this could be it. I mean, at this position, the way the league is, this is his one chance to cash in, and I don't think he's going to do it because the numbers aren't there.
It's interesting because I think before the year, you would have said, well, this guy is tied at the hip to Justin Fields. It's Justin Fields' guy. And so, you're going to sign him just to keep Justin Fields happy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how it felt. It's almost like a Randall Cobb situation. Even if we thought, just make sure that he's healthy. That was kind of the refrain that I heard multiple times from people. Let's make sure that he's returned from injury, make sure he's healthy, and then lock him up, right?
Yep.
And then with all the questions around Fields, now it's like, geez, that doesn't matter anymore. Like, if Justin Fields is going to be here, then you don't need to keep Darnell Mooney to appease Justin Fields, so maybe we don't need to keep him. And he has just kind of been lost this year. And I really like Darnell Mooney, the player. So I wanted to make sure we got a chance to talk about him. Hopefully he continues that hot streak and we're talking about an extension for sure, right? Like I'm still prioritizing Jalen Johnson. I was prioritizing him before the year. If it was up to me, I still think he's first in line right now, but we'll see if Mooney works his way back into that conversation. Let's flip it around and let's talk about Cold Bowl. Plenty of places to go and a loss, but where are you heading with this one?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of take it a different direction. I'm going to go more towards the Chicago Bears injury designation list because they have just they have 3 guys they bring them back from IR today, so that's all 8. You're only allowed 8, right?
Yeah.
2 of the Bears designations this season were spent on Doug Kramer, who is now a Cardinal, and Khalid Kareem, who was cut and brought back to the practice squad. So 2 of your 8 designations, the Chicago Bears in their roster building management 101, I think that they all took a course here. They decided that 2 of those spots were best to be used on 2 guys that are no longer on the 53-man roster. And that's Poles, that's Eberflus, that's the whole process here. Just terrible process. And that's an ongoing theme with some of the Ryan Poles blunders is just process. And this is a bad one. Khalid Kareem, you really had to put him on IR. I mean, he was cut in the season. Yeah, you got him on waivers, but who's this? Come on. This guy is not a guy that's a building block of your team. Cut him. Bring him back if you can. And Dominic Robinson, why is he on this roster? You could have cut him, brought him back. Velus Jones Jr. Okay, you could have cut him and brought him back later. There's just so many guys in this roster. You're like, why are you saving these valuable designations for guys that stink?
So, all right, I want to set the table real quick. So what Lester's talking about is
Yes.
a player's injured, but he's not out for the year. So like if a guy like say tears his ACL, you put him on IR, injured reserve, right? He's out for the year. Recently, the league has added this designation to you can put a guy on injured reserve with a designation to return.
Four
Back in the day,
games.
you didn't have that, which is like
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing to recall that not that long ago, the league did not have as much roster flexibility. The practice squads were much smaller. And you had to really manage your roster in a very different way. And if you like the guy was going to be out for a few, a decent amount of time, you're like, I guess we'll just shelve him, put him on IR, and we're going to bring somebody else in, to fill that roster spot. So there's a lot more flexibility now. And then when they created this IR with the designation to return, I think it was one like the first year, like you
Yeah.
could do one, maybe they kicked it up to three, and something. Now it's eight. So there are a lot more of these to use, but players are injured pretty regularly, and you're using this as a tool, but they're not, free giveaways. Like they still do have a strategy with them. And when you use that on a player that's kind of bottom of the roster to begin with, you may be taking that opportunity away from using it on a player that you definitely want to protect. So if you use them up all real quick, then you're in a situation where if somebody goes down, you may be put in a hard spot to have to put that player on IR for the rest of the year, or put yourself at a disadvantage and have to play with fewer players on that are active on roster day, or even cut somebody that you really don't want to. But using it on players that you end up just cutting, because you don't need them. I don't care if they got claimed or not. Like that doesn't nothing to me. These are bottom of the roster churn guys anyway. Is poor management, and there have been some procedural issues with Ryan Pohl's tenure here so far. So I like that one outside the box. I did not expect you to go there. I know that we have discussed that, but I didn't think that was a cold bowl. So I guess you're serving it to polls
Yeah, it's
on
going
his
to polls
administrative.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's just the point of it. Why are we keeping roster spots? For these, like a guy like Nate Davis, high ankle sprain, you probably would have put him on IR.
right,
Shut him down for a while. Which is, I mean, he's still shut down,
right.
but you could have brought a guy up. I just don't see the point of Doug Kramer. I know there's a lot of high hopes for him in Chicago because he's a guy from Hinsdale Central. He went to Illinois. Oh my God, he's a local kid. At the end of the day, nobody's running out to get him. And if you do go out and get him, you weren't playing him anyway. He was buried. He was your fourth center because you went out and signed the guy. Okay, or you traded for
Dan Feeney.
Dan Feeney. I can't even think of the guy's name because he's been so invisible. This is not your plan. If he was part of your plan, okay, fine. But Khalid Kareem, come on. And then I know it was done before the Montez Sweat trade, but come on, what is the point here?
All right, so mine is this CBS crew that we all had to
Oh,
to
I
go
hate
through.
it.
I They made so many mistakes, and I don't want to be mean to Matt Ryan. They're what, the eighth string CBS crew. They're just learning. They're trying. I get it. They're trying their best, and they're an AFC network that is covering two NFC teams. So it's particularly difficult because they haven't called either a Saints game or a Bears game this year. I'm trying to give them at least some benefit of the doubt, but there are times where I swear that one time they said Tyreek Stevenson
They
was a
did.
Saints player, right? Like he's a Tyreek Stevenson breaks up that ball to DJ Moore, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think
Who?
so,
Yeah.
right? Unless it's just this random coincidence that they have a Tyreek Stevenson too. But they would get and poor Matt Ryan and who the other color guy was, but Taysom Hill and Tyson Bagent, boy, they had trouble with that, right? Like they were calling Taysom Bagent, all afternoon. But that's the job, right? Like that's the job. You learn these players' names, and if you're not confident in the name, there have been plenty of times where we've been talking about people, and I am not totally confident on the name, and I just will then say so, the corner, right? Number 6 for like I did earlier this episode, right? Like you can do that, right? And anyway, it was really distracting for me. The camera angles are bad, which we've talked about before, but the just not being prepared, and it I'm an auditory learner, so it really takes me out when you can't even pronounce players right or you've got the team switched. It's just weird.
Like you said, go with the last name. You don't have to say the guy's first name. But the crazy thing is because Tyson Bagent was like a huge NFL story. I mean, this is like, it was a huge part of the NBC Sunday night game. You know, everyone know what's going on here, and they're still getting his name wrong, which I get it. It's an NFC team. You're not really thinking about him too much. Let's just go with the last name. You don't have to spend some time trying to figure out the whole thing. And I think they got Foreman's name wrong several times. I think he was Devontae at some point for most of
Yeah,
the game, and
definitely.
it's like, you know, the camera angles we've discussed quite a bit. The camera angles didn't bother me this time. I think partly because the Bears just suck so bad. I'm almost like, I really don't want to watch this replay anyway. But yeah, I mean, it was just that's a good one. CBS Crew. I had a feeling one of us were going to talk about them this week. I'm glad it was you.
Yeah, maybe the camera angle was a little better because of the Superdome. I don't know because it wasn't quite
Ah,
that
okay.
like upfield up the offense angle. It was a little bit more towards the defense this week. But anyway, I digress. How about just right? What do you got for just right, Bull?
I had two. I'm going to go with my first guy here, and I got to go back to Tevin Jenkins. He is the guy that when the Bears drafted him, we thought he's going to be a fixture on the O line. We thought it'd be a tackle, but now obviously it's going to be a guard. This is who he is. He is just a mauler in the run game. He is a good in pass protection. He's still learning some of the nuance of guard. Some of the stuff with twists and stuff. He still kind of struggles a bit here and there, but he can win with just his pure raw physicality. And if you're going to have that at guard, that is outstanding. So Tevin Jenkins, he is who we thought he was. Let's get him signed this offseason.
Yep, building block. You got to love to see it. And I you got Darnell Wright, right? I mean, he's looking good. I mean, there's some things to get excited about this Bears offensive line. Got to make at least one more investment, if not two, but definitely one more investment in center. And I think you could have something here for the future. For me, I'm going to go Jack Sanborn. So it gets an opportunity to make a start, makes plays, and it really brings into question. You knew what you had. You're the guy that signed him to an undrafted free agent contract last year. You saw what he did down the stretch. Wasn't that enough of an audition to maybe just bring this guy back and allow him to start? I'm not questioning bringing in Edwards because he's played pretty good football next to whoever has been there. But again, like Jack Sanborn steps in, and I'm not sure you saw much of a dip in productivity to what we see with Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like Sanborn. I think he again, you have to wonder what are they evaluating? They really saw him play last year. They saw him in camp and preseason. They saw him during this regular season. Yes, he went on IR. Maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe they were a little nervous about the injury. Um, you know, they value the linebacker spot more than some other staffs will because of the type of scheme they run. So they had to get their Mike and their Will locked up. They paid about the same money that would have cost Roquan. So maybe they're thinking, hey, it's a 2-for-1 deal. This is a way to go. But Sanborn's in there. He's able to play at a pretty high level. He's not the athlete that Edmonds is, clearly, but he's productive. So maybe that money could have been spent on a center or somewhere else on this roster where you have a glaring hole. And if you're the defensive guy, you're the defensive coach. This is your thing. You're brought in here because you're a defensive guru. That's why you got the job. Maybe let's allocate some funds on offense and let you kind of scheme up and coach up the guys on defense. Because we kind of saw this, where the Bears spent too much money on defense, for a while there. We're like, what are they doing here? They got to put some money in the offense. And now here they are again, same kind of thing. And you would think if you got a guy that knows defense, you probably should have recognized Sanborn as the guy that kind of, at least be a stopgap guy before they figured it out.
Yeah, that is such a good point. The idea that you bring in a defensive minded head coach, which I have all the problems with in the world because of where you were at with your roster build and with Justin Fields, the young quarterback. But if you do that, to me, you're saying like, we're going to bring this guy in because we believe in his ability to get more out of less. And this allows us to invest in the offense and we can get premium players over there. And we're going to let our head coach really go to work and get good production out of, because he knows how to get production out of lower drafted guys, or he knows how to pluck guys from the undrafted free agent, or he knows the players that are on the scrap heap in free agency, and he's going to bring these guys in and he's going to get something out of them. All I hear from people that are defending this guy, which are fewer and fewer every week, but is, well, he doesn't have all of the players that he needs. This scheme needs a 3 technique, and it needs it needs this, it needs that. It's like, I'm not interested in that, dude. Like, oh, you need an all pro at every level, and you need pro bowlers at every level next to those all pros for this thing to work. We don't have the resources for that. No, get out of here. Like, I'm not interested in that. I want someone who can be creative and solve problems with what you got. Right. So I think that's a really excellent point.
What's the old saying? You either can make excuse or get results, and it seems like Flus is a lot of excuses here. Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker.
Loose excuse. There's something there.
I like it. A new shirt. We talked to our guys to get a new shirt.
Fluce's excuses, a new segment where we just talk about how it's not his fault because he just puts blame on other people. The play was there, the execution. That is actually something that happens at all of his press conference.
The Fluce's
excuses. You saw it coined here first. Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Well done.
I like it. Yeah. So I mean, it's nice that we found a new segment, but man, I wish it wasn't, because there's so much they put into the defense. Draft picks, Walker, Ngakoue, now Montez Sweat, and it's like, really, all these draft picks are being spent on, like you said, on Flus, and where are the results? I want results, and then we're not getting it.
Well, you've already 4 second-round picks, and then next year's second-round pick was Sweat, right? So, I mean, that you've spent 5 second-round picks on defensive players, right? I think that's right.
Yeah, that math checks out, if you ask me.
It checks out. All right. Why don't we get out of here? We'll stick around for the YouTube crowd and any questions for those hardy individuals that are joining us on a Monday night after the daylight savings time disappears. It's dark out. Why not? Why not come hang with us over on Second City Gridiron YouTube? You guys that are listening to this on the podcast, give us a try sometime. 6:00 every Monday Central Time. But before we get out of here, anything you want to talk about?
No, not really. It's the Bears.
No.
It is. Let's just get the hell out of here. Move on to the YouTubers, because there's a loyal group in there that want to talk some Bears.
All right, we'll do that. Thanks everybody for joining us and for listening wherever you're getting your podcasts at. Till next time, bear down.
I got to tell you, I did drink that cookies and cream beer over the weekend.
How was it?
Oh, it was horrible. Just like I thought it would. Just terrible. It did taste like cookies and cream, though, which is funny, because like the gummy bear beer that I had at the show, it was bad at first, but then it left me with a gummy taste. This was opposite. The first was like, oh, that's cookies and cream. Oh, then there's a nasty stouty beer taste. Oh, terrible. But I finished it because I'm a trooper.
Well, I mean, you paid for it. You're not going to just throw it down. You're not just going to dump it.
I'm cheap. Yeah, I definitely drink whatever I buy.
Some guy named Dave, Bears version of Groundhog Day. Yeah, a little bit. There's maybe a show that just what's the Severance? Did you watch that?
I'm about halfway through. I like that show. That's a good one.
That feels maybe a little bit more like this.
We just checked in to WCG. We're checked in.
Yeah, maybe my Audi is actually enjoying a life, out there, and then, I'm just like subject to this in here. I don't know. It's bad. I don't think that Flus is going to get. I think this is who he is. I mean, I don't know how much more that you need, but yeah, it's and then this is how I was trying to spell it. So I think I think I steered you correctly. So
maybe
somebody else knows it.
Real quick on the Flus thing. So if he's back next year, which at this point, I mean, I'm out. I mean, I've been out. I don't know. I can't see. I see the Bears holding on to him, and then where are you as a franchise? The same kind of thing when the Bears kept Nagy a year too long. They drafted Justin Fields then, and it doesn't match up. the timeline, you want everything to be on the same timeline. And if they
Yep.
keep Flus and they decide to get a new quarterback, or even worse, what if they decide to punt on quarterback and they say, you know, it's not Fields, because it seems like they don't want Fields. I mean, I hope he does great. Like Brenda said, I hope he shows he's the guy, because we all want that. It seems they're out on him. So then what? Are you bringing in a veteran stopgap for Flus's lame duck season? Gardner Minshew is going to be the new Bears quarterback next year, because
You
he
already have
can,
Gardner Minshew on the roster. His name's Tyson
yeah,
Bagent.
he can process quickly. I mean, I don't know what's going on. It's just such a weird place to be in limbo now as a Bears fan, because we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what the direction is here.
Okay, and what you just said is what a free agent's going to think. Right?
Yeah,
And so, like, if you're a free agent and you can go to this team who's like, "Hey, we're going to plug you in here. We're going to put you in the best position," or "Hey, we're competing. We think we're just a piece away," or it's the Bears, and you're like, okay, I can go somewhere where I like the coaching and I know where the direction is, or I can go to this competitor. They want to pay me a little less, but I wouldn't mind trying to get a ring and maybe cash in after that, or I can go to the Bears, who are probably going to fire their coach in a year, and like they don't seem to develop anybody. And no, the only way that you're going to get anybody to sign here is if you're going to go pay 20-30% more than the next team, right? Like, you're going to have to overpay to get. This is what happened in Jacksonville, right?
yeah.
Jacksonville was such a mess. They had to overpay everybody to come here and to go to Jacksonville. And that's exactly what you're setting yourself up for if you keep this administration, this regime going, right? It's so bad. I can't imagine there's a lot of players singing the praises of this coaching staff outside of Hallis Hall. And players talk like, no free agent's going to come here. It's just not going to happen.
At least for the Jags, though, they got a quarterback and they got a head coach that came in now, Doug Peterson, who is a professional head coach, and so he at least has that resume. Where when he came in and they did that, I mean, they got rid of Urban. I mean, that was just a terrible.
That was a
Like
bad idea from the start.
the Jags went through like 2 straight years of being the worst team in the NFL, and they came out of it somehow because they hit on a quarterback, they hit on the head coach, and now that team is they're playing pretty good football, and they're in a good place now in the AFC.
I mean, it's there, man. Flus's excuses. We've got to do something about it.
Where the hell was? I mean, after 2 years, you figure it would have popped up at some point. That's interesting that it took this long.
Sometimes it's just this energy, right? Like, sometimes you just have to have. I don't know. You said excuses, and it just like popped. It was like, oh, we gotta. This is it. This is gold. It's gold, Jerry. It's gold. I don't know. If nothing else, I have to write an article just titled "Flus's Excuses," and then we just bring in pull quotes from his pressers or something, where it's not his fault. It's somebody else, right?
That is what happens with when he does.
He
talk.
does not take blame. I mean, it's very stark. You go back and really listen to what he says. It's never coaches have to go do a better job. Coaches need to do this. Coaches need to do that. It's like, players need to execute more. They need to execute better. It's it's pretty good. So Jay's asking, choose any coach to maximize Fields' abilities. Who would it be? I mean, I think you look to somebody who has shaped somebody who has a similar skill set and had success with them. And so I think that's a pretty good place to start. I know that the stock of Brian Daboll has gone down considerably this year, with the Giants looking like they might be headed towards the top draft pick. But he showed a lot of development with Josh Allen, and I think it's a fair comp to use Josh Allen and Justin Fields. I know Allen had some things click, and he really improved some of the issues that he was having early on in his career with his accuracy issues that had not necessarily happened with Fields, but that's what I would want to see. Could a guy like Daboll bring that guy along and maybe get similar results? And I think they miss him. I think Buffalo misses Daboll a little bit. I don't think they've been quite as good without Daboll there with Josh Allen. So that's the first name that comes to mind. And I think a lot of these young creative coaches that are out there right now, I think you'd want to see if they can do something. I mean, Everybody's kind of favorite candidate right now. At least he's my favorite candidate. I think you're probably up there. Is Ben Johnson from
Yeah.
Detroit? And you say, well, he has no history with a guy like Fields. Well, that's true, but like Goff might be playing the best football of his career, and Goff was playing for Sean McVay not that long ago, who's like everybody's favorite, wonderkin. So I don't know. Like, I just think it takes a guy that, is willing to look at a player and say, this is what he does well. How do I shape offense around those strengths, as opposed to somebody who's like, this is what I know, and I'm going to try to fit that player into what I know.
And that's Johnson. And Johnson has a great run game, run design. He does a lot of stuff. He kind of accentuates what Goff does. I mean, Goff's not the athlete, obviously Fields is, but I think this kind of points to a different thing. Is if you do bring in a new offensive coach, I think it's coming with a new head coach as well. I think if
Oh
Flus
yeah.
survives, I think it's going to be Getsy again next year, which, I just don't want it to happen. And if you bring in a new head coach, odds are he's going to want his own start. He doesn't want to take over Justin Fields. I mean, he may come in, thinking different. He may, hey, that was my guy in college. I see the flashes. It may work, but depending on where the Bears are drafting here, you have a chance now as a head coach coming in to have the organization get you your quarterback in the draft, and then you can build it from there and go and see where it takes you, as opposed to coming in, taking over what's already here. And like I said, we want Fields to succeed, but it just seems like they're out on him.
It does. And again, that kind of goes back to that misalignment of the regime, right?
Yep.
And so if you repeat that by flushing Fields and keeping the coaching staff for just a lame duck year, because you don't want to pay. Honestly, I feel like there's some truth to it. Like, you don't want to pay the rest of the coach salary and then pay another one. And you look at Mark Davis; he's paying a lot of money to coaches that don't coach for the Raiders anymore, right? And that is not a cash rich team. That is a team
Yeah.
that it's family owned. It's certainly a team that is making some gambles that didn't pan out, and he's probably feeling that. But this is also a team that, speaking of Chicago, that doesn't have to if they're not going to keep Fields, then you don't have to worry about the second quarterback contract for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's some things that you should have the money to be able to pay off Eberflus, and as a first time head coach, which is also probably what attracts George McCaskey to push for those decisions. Those guys generally don't make as much as, say, like Bill Belichick, or even like Kyle Shanahan when he signed with the Niners, had a pretty nice contract, right? So like, it's probably on the cheaper end anyway. I don't really care about George McCaskey's pocketbook, but he certainly does. And so this is the opportunity, if you're going to do this, to start over and align everything. And I know a lot of people want Poles out. A lot of people want to give Poles a chance to hire his own coach, because I think he was just given 3 and said, here, pick from this 3. That's fine too. Like, whatever happens, but like, align it all. Quarterback, hire the coach, let the coach in on the decision process, bring in the quarterback you want. I mean, look at sorry, I'm just kind of going off here, but like,
That's fine.
look at Kyle Shanahan, who wanted to draft, I think he wanted to draft Mac Jones. Is kind of the rumor. And then they they drafted Trey Lance, and then that whole disaster. And now you've got the modern day example, which is great for the Bears, is happening in Carolina right now, where the owner stepped in and pushed to draft Young, whereas the coaching staff wanted CJ Stroud. So you see how good Stroud has been playing. Not to say that he would be that for Carolina, but Stroud had a particularly high floor that I think a lot of people could see pretty easily. And Young maybe was a little bit more of a gamble, who had maybe a higher ceiling, but so far that does not appear to be working out for Carolina, which again, good for Chicago. So again, you want to make sure everybody's in alignment. Like, don't step on it. Like, bring everything in and then tie everything together. But if you move on from one and then keep another and then bring it in, like, those mismatched pieces just don't really work.
Yeah, I'm kind of resigned, thinking that Poles will survive this somehow. I just got a feeling they let him make the big Montez Sweat trade. I don't think they let you do that if you think that you're still reevaluating what he is as a GM. I think he's going to stay, but you got to move on. And we got another question here from our guy Jay. Does Kevin Warren, is he the guy, or is he here for the stadium?
We're about to find out.
We're going to find out. I mean, you look at Kevin Warren's career, and yes, he was a big part of the Vikings getting the stadium deal done, but he was also involved in other stuff too. He was there for a long time. He kind of went through some of the contract stuff as far as the GM, the coach. He was in LA during that era with McVay. So Kevin Warren's been around for a long time. He ran the Big Ten for a while. So I think Kevin Warren, I know McCaskey said he was in, and they said he has full authority. But what he says and what they does are two different things, because we've seen him talk about, the football guy is Ryan Pace, but yet you still bring in, consultants and stuff to do things with. So let's see what happens. We're going to find out this offseason. I have my doubts. I'll believe it when I see it, because I'm still waiting for the next 75-year-old guy to come in and tell George what to do. And I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how old Kevin Warren is, but at this point, with all of your experience, and if you assess the situation and you say, "No, this is the best approach. I'm gonna roll this out here, and I'm gonna take over." This is your time to shine, man. Like this is your time. Do it. Pull in your own guy, align everything, and see if that way. You know what? If nothing else, try something different. Try this for once. Let's see if this works. And if this doesn't work, then go back to your meddling ways where you hand select a couple of old candidates that are related to the consultant that you brought in, and have your new GM pick from that, shortened list of 3, right? Like, fine, whatever. But I can't do it again. Like, I can't personally stomach another lame duck year from a coaching staff that has clearly proved that they suck. Right? I can't personally do it. And if Bill's guess from last week is correct, that they're going to fire Flus and promote Getsy, I'm out. I'm out on that too. Like, I'm Shark Tanking this right now. Like right now, I'm very close to being like, and for that reason, I'm out. Yeah. Like, that's where I'm at with this team.
Well, I talked about a few weeks ago, if the Bears do it again, I mean, I'm still a Bears fan, but I'm going to find me an AFC team that I can cheer for, because I want some enjoyment on my Sundays. And I'm not going to be quite as invested, because I'm not, obviously didn't grow up with them. It's not my team from 40 years, but I can't do it again. I can't do it as a lame duck, Eberflus, Getsy, stubbornness, antiquated schemes. Just like, oh my God, I can't do it again. Bring in some veteran quarterback to get us through, like another Nick Foles type thing. I just can't do it. You know what I mean? Just clean break, pull out the Band-Aid, new coach, new everything. Like I said, I think Foles is staying, but new coach, let's go. Got to do it.
It's so clear. Yeah. It's so clear. If you're listening, which I'm sure that you watch this show every week, if you're listening,
he's a fan, yeah,
and you need us to start a GoFundMe campaign so that you can afford to buy out the rest of the Eberflus contract, let us know. We'll start it. We won't put your name on it, but we'll start it. I think there's a lot of Chicago fans that would pitch in a few bucks to help you pay off that contract. So yes. Why don't we leave it there with my GoFundMe idea, and we'll go talk about Flus's excuses and how we roll that in here. And thanks everybody for joining us. Appreciate the time. And see you next week.